The sun was beginning to dip behind the dusty horizon when Sarah stumbled upon the small boy crouched behind the fence, trembling. His wide, dark eyes darted nervously as he clutched a basket of apples he had only meant to borrow for his family. But in this town, whispers turned quickly to accusations, and soon enough a mob had gathered, their anger fueled by fear and old prejudices. Sarah could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, like smoke from a brush fire. The mob's leader, a burly man with a scar running down his cheek, pointed a finger at the boy. "He's stolen from us again. We can't let this go unpunished." His voice carried over the shouts of others, and Sarah could see the knives glinting in the setting sun. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but she forced herself to step forward. "No." She shouted, her voice sharp and unwavering. Heads turned toward her, eyebrows raised in surprise. "He hasn't stolen anything. This boy meant no harm." The men laughed, some jeering, others shaking their heads. "And who are you to tell us what to do, little lady?" One sneered. "I am someone who will not watch an innocent child be hurt," she replied, her chest rising and falling with fierce determination. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears, each one a drumbeat of courage she hadn't known she possessed until now. The mob hesitated, uncertainty flickering across their faces. Fear of the unknown, perhaps, or maybe the recognition that her bravery was not to be taken lightly. Sarah stood her ground, planting herself firmly between the boy and the crowd. She could feel their eyes on her, the tension prickling her skin like static electricity. The boy's gaze met hers, wide with terror but also glimmering with a fragile hope. "Please, don't let them," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You are safe," Sarah assured him, holding out her hand. "I won't let them harm you. Not while I'm here." Time seemed to stretch as the mob murmured among themselves. Arguments rose and fell, some attempting to sway the crowd with logic, others with threats. But Sarah's calm defiance, the steady fire in her eyes, seemed to plant a seed of doubt in their minds. Slowly, reluctantly, the men began to step back, tension still coiled like a spring but unable to break. When the first stars appeared in the sky, the mob finally dispersed, grumbling and muttering, leaving the boy trembling but unharmed. Sarah knelt beside him, brushing dust from his clothes and offering a small, reassuring smile. "It's over," she said softly. "You're safe now." The boy's lips quivered into the faintest of smiles, gratitude shining through the fear. He nodded silently, clutching her hand for a moment before bolting toward the trees where he knew his family might be waiting. Sarah watched him go, her chest heavy with adrenaline and relief. Exhausted, she trudged back to her small cabin at the edge of town, unaware that her act of courage had already set events in motion that would change her life. The wind whispered through the trees as night fell, carrying with it a promise she did not yet understand. At dawn, before the sun had fully risen, a figure appeared at her doorstep. Broad-shouldered and silent, he bore the proud, strong features of the Apache people. In his eyes burned respect and quiet gratitude. Without a word, he knelt, lowering himself to the ground before her, an act of honor she had never expected. Sarah froze, unsure what to do, but the sincerity in his gaze spoke louder than any words could. She realized in that moment that her courage had not gone unnoticed and that a bond, forged in fear and bravery, was beginning to take shape. The morning sun spilled gold across the wooden planks of Sarah's porch, yet she barely noticed it. Her eyes remained fixed on the figure kneeling before her. The Apache man's posture was rigid with discipline, but there was no threat in his stance, only respect. Sarah's heart raced, caught between awe and unease. He finally spoke, his voice low and measured. "You protected my brother," Sarah swallowed, suddenly aware of how small her cabin felt. I couldn't let them hurt him." "He didn't deserve it," she said. The words came out steadier than she expected, her hands clasping each other tightly. He studied her for a long moment. The wind teased his long hair, and the morning light highlighted the strength in his shoulders, the sharpness in his eyes, yet there was a gentleness in the way he observed her. Finally, he nodded. "Then you have my respect." "And my thanks." Sarah felt a warmth spread through her chest, unfamiliar and confusing. Gratitude, yes, but something more. She wanted to ask his name, to reach out in some way, but the gravity of his kneeling form kept her silent. The quiet was heavy but not uncomfortable, as if both of them understood the weight of the moment without words. After what felt like an eternity, he rose to his full height, and Sarah noticed the subtle ways he moved, careful, deliberate, controlled. "He spoke of you," the Apache man continued. "He said you stood between him and harm when no one else would." Sarah's lips parted in surprise. He told you?" "Yes," he said simply. "He feared for his life, yet he trusted you." "That trust. It matters." Her fingers grazed the edge of the doorway, and she felt the reality of the past night pressing down. The mob, the fear, the bravery it had taken, all of it seemed distant, yet raw in her memory. "I just did what I thought was right," she murmured, almost to herself. The Apache man's eyes softened slightly, though they never lost their intensity. Right and courage are not the same. Many act out of fear or anger or obligation. You acted despite fear. That is courage. Sarah's breath hitched. She had never considered herself brave. Courage was something she read about in books or saw in others, not something she embodied. Yet here he was, honoring her for exactly that. A moment of silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft rustling of the morning breeze. Then he spoke again, more gently this time. "If danger comes again, if harm reaches those you care for, you must not face it alone. My brother, and I will stand with you." Sarah's throat tightened. She had spent years learning to fend for herself, relying on no one but her own wits and resolve. Yet the sincerity in his words, the depth of his promise, stirred something she hadn't felt in a long time, the possibility of trust, of alliance. I don't know what to say," she admitted. "Then say nothing," he replied, a hint of a smile brushing his lips. "Let your actions speak, as you have already done." For the first time, Sarah saw him not just as a warrior, not just as an intimidating figure, but as a man bound by honor, courage, and loyalty. She sensed the weight of his presence, the protective force behind him, and yet there was no threat in it, only a promise that danger faced her no longer alone. As the sun climbed higher, Sarah felt a shift within herself. The world beyond her cabin was unpredictable and often cruel, but the bond formed that morning between courage and gratitude would not be easily broken. She understood, perhaps for the first time, that bravery could be shared, and that sometimes the most powerful allies arrived when least expected, kneeling with respect and offering their strength to those who dared to stand alone. The Apache man remained for a moment longer, silent and unwavering, before turning toward the rising sun. Yet even as he walked away, Sarah felt his presence linger, a quiet sentinel, watching and waiting, ready to stand by her side should the shadows of fear ever return. The quiet of the morning didn't last long. By mid-afternoon, rumors of the night's confrontation had spread through the town like wildfire. Whispers followed Sarah wherever she went, sharp eyes measuring her, judging her. Some shook their heads in disapproval. Others, fueled by curiosity and fear, lingered just a little too long. The mob may have dispersed the night before, but the anger in their hearts had not cooled. Sarah tried to focus on her chores, the rhythmic work grounding her, but a sense of unease clung to her. The boy's face flashed in her mind, wide-eyed, trembling, yet trusting. She had promised to protect him. She had no intention of failing. A sudden sound made her spin. Horses' hooves pounded in the distance, growing louder. A group of men approached, eyes glinting with suspicion and anger. The leader, the same burly man with the scar from the night before, rode at the front. "Thought you could protect a thief without consequences, did you?" he shouted. Sarah's heart raced. She could not face them alone, not this time. But before fear could paralyze her, a shadow fell across the clearing. The Apache man from that morning, along with the boy's brother, appeared seemingly out of nowhere, moving with fluid precision, their presence commanding and immediate. The mob halted, uncertainty flickering across their faces. These were no ordinary men. Their eyes, calm yet sharp, radiated a controlled power. They were not to be trifled with. Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Leave him be. You have no right to threaten him or me." The scarred man laughed harshly, spurring his horse closer. "And who's going to stop us? You? Two strangers?" The Apache brothers exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. Without a word, they shifted positions, one on each side of Sarah, a wall of resolve and strength. Their quiet confidence unsettled the mob. The boy from last night appeared at the edge of the clearing, peeking from behind a tree, his small form trembling but determined. He clutched his basket as if it were a talisman. Seeing him gave Sarah renewed courage. She could not allow these men to harm him. The tension hung thick. The air charged as if nature itself were holding its breath. Then, with a calm that belied the danger, the elder Apache brother spoke. "You threaten the innocent. That is not law, it is fear. Step back or face the consequences of your actions." The scarred man's jaw tightened, but he could sense the truth in the words and the weight behind them. Every eye in the mob searched for support, for someone to back them. Yet the collective courage of the two Apache warriors and Sarah made hesitation contagious. Slowly, reluctantly, the men began to pull back, their anger still simmering but restrained by the authority of honor and restraint. Sarah exhaled, relief mingling with exhaustion. The boy ran to her side, clutching her hand. She knelt to meet his gaze. "It's okay now. You're safe," she whispered. He nodded, the trust in his eyes unwavering. The Apache brothers remained for a moment, their presence a silent shield. Before one of them finally spoke, his voice softer now. "You are brave," he said to Sarah. "Bravery like yours deserves respect and loyalty in return. We will watch over him and you, if ever needed." Sarah's chest swelled with gratitude. She had stood alone once, but now she understood the power of alliance, of shared courage. Fear could still linger in the world, but together they were stronger. As the sun dipped toward evening, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold, Sarah realized something profound. Courage could ignite loyalty, and loyalty could turn strangers into family. And in this small clearing at the edge of town, a bond had formed that neither fear nor prejudice could easily break. The Apache brothers exchanged a final glance with Sarah, a silent promise lingering in the air. Should danger rise again, they would not hesitate. And Sarah, for the first time, felt that she did not have to face the world alone. The next morning dawned calm and bright, a gentle contrast to the tension of the previous days. Sarah rose early, still carrying the residual weight of the mob's hostility and the protective presence of the Apache brothers. She couldn't shake the feeling that her life had shifted irrevocably. In just a few days, her quiet world had been swept into a current of courage, danger, and unexpected alliances. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. She opened it to find the elder Apache standing there, his expression neutral but his eyes carrying a quiet intensity. "May I enter?" he asked. Sarah stepped aside, letting him in. Inside, the cabin felt suddenly smaller, more intimate, as if the space itself acknowledged the gravity of the moment. The Apache's gaze swept the room, noting the simplicity of her life, the neatly stacked firewood, the small table with a few cooking utensils, the modest bed in the corner. Yet his attention returned to her, unwavering. "You have shown courage," he began, "not just in standing against men, but in protecting what is innocent and right. That courage is rare." Sarah swallowed, feeling the warmth of his respect, but also a quiet unease. "I only did what I could. I didn't know if it would work, if it would be enough." He studied her for a moment, his dark eyes thoughtful. "Courage is not measured by certainty of success. It is measured by willingness to act despite fear. That is how the world recognizes true strength." For a moment, Sarah simply listened. His words resonated deeply, reminding her that her actions, though frightening, had meaning far beyond herself. She realized how much she had underestimated her own resolve, and yet she also recognized that her bravery had not gone unnoticed. The Apache brother took a step closer, his presence commanding but calm. "The boy you protected, he is part of our family, and by protecting him, you have become part of ours." In a way, Sarah's breath caught. She had never expected friendship, let alone acceptance, from people she had known so little about. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then say nothing," he replied, a hint of a smile breaking through his otherwise serious demeanor. "Let your actions continue to speak. And perhaps, over time, trust and understanding will grow between us." The boy appeared at the doorway, peeking in shyly. His eyes brightened when he saw Sarah, and he ran to her side, wrapping his small arms around her waist. Sarah hugged him back, feeling a protective surge she hadn't expected to feel so strongly. "You see?" the Apache said, watching the scene. "Strength comes in many forms. It is in your courage, your heart, and your willingness to stand for what is right." Sarah nodded, a newfound sense of purpose settling over her. She realized that her life had been changed not just by her own actions, but by the presence of people willing to stand with her, to fight beside her when danger arose. For the first time, she felt a sense of belonging not just in the physical sense, but in the deeper understanding of connection, loyalty, and respect. She had faced fear head-on and had emerged stronger, not alone, but supported by those who shared her values. The Apache remained for a while longer, sharing stories of his people, their customs, and their deep respect for honor and family. Sarah listened intently, absorbing every word. In that quiet morning, the bond between them deepened, not just through gratitude or obligation, but through mutual understanding and respect. As the sun climbed higher, casting its warm light over the cabin and the surrounding land, Sarah knew that the world outside was still full of danger and prejudice. But she also knew that courage, loyalty, and honor could create alliances stronger than fear, and that even in a harsh, unpredictable world, she had found allies she could trust and a connection she would never forget. Days passed with a fragile calm settling over the small settlement. Sarah moved through her daily routines with a sense of quiet vigilance, aware that the danger she had faced was not gone, only delayed. The boy she had protected stayed close, learning chores and routines, his presence a constant reminder of the stakes she had put herself in to keep him safe. One late afternoon, as shadows stretched across the dusty streets, Sarah noticed unfamiliar figures moving at the edge of town. Their posture was aggressive, and the way they whispered and glanced around suggested that trouble was brewing. Her stomach clenched. She had hoped the previous encounter had been enough to keep them at bay. Before panic could take hold, a familiar shadow fell across the porch. The elder Apache and the boy's brother appeared almost silently, their movements fluid and deliberate. Sarah felt her chest tighten, not with fear, but with a strange reassurance. She wasn't alone this time. "They have come again," she said, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. The Apache's gaze hardened. "They will not harm the innocent while we are here. Stand close to the boy and remain calm." The men approached, their faces twisted with anger and malice. "Thought you could hide him forever," one spat. "This town isn't big enough for him or for you." Sarah's heart pounded, but she did not step back. She had learned in the past few days that courage was not the absence of fear, it was action in spite of it. The Apache brothers flanked her, silent sentinels, their eyes steady and unyielding. The leader of the new group stepped forward, sizing up the scene. "And who are these men?" he demanded, glancing at the two warriors. "Friends of yours?" "They are my allies," Sarah replied, her voice clear. "And if you wish to harm the boy, you will face both of us." A tense silence stretched, broken only by the rustle of the wind through the dry grass. The attackers exchanged uneasy glances, uncertainty creeping into their aggression. The presence of the Apache men, combined with Sarah's unwavering stance, made it clear that this confrontation would not be easy or safe for anyone who acted recklessly. Then the elder Apache stepped forward, his voice low but carrying authority. "We do not seek conflict, but we will not stand by while the innocent suffer. Leave now or face the consequences of your choice." The leader sneered, but the weight of his words, combined with the calm yet formidable presence of the warriors and Sarah, caused hesitation. Slowly, as if realizing the danger, the men began to retreat, their anger still present, but restrained by respect for those who refused to be intimidated. Sarah exhaled, relief mingling with exhaustion. She knelt briefly beside the boy, brushing dust from his clothing. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're safe again." The boy's eyes shone with gratitude, but more importantly, he had begun to understand what it meant to have protectors, people who acted not out of fear, but out of honor. The Apache men exchanged a glance and nodded at Sarah, a silent communication of trust and alliance. One of them finally spoke. "You have shown courage beyond what is expected of most. That courage, paired with loyalty, binds us. Know that we will continue to stand by you." Sarah felt a deep, unexpected warmth at his words. She realized that in these past days her life had transformed. Fear had been replaced with connection, isolation with alliance, uncertainty with trust. She was no longer a lone woman facing a town's prejudice. She was part of a bond forged in bravery, respect, and mutual protection. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep shades of amber and crimson, Sarah understood something profound. The world could be cruel, but courage and loyalty could build a fortress stronger than any mob. And in that moment, standing with the boy and the Apache brothers, she felt a security and belonging she had never known before. The threat had passed for now, but Sarah knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she would no longer face them alone. The following morning, the town seemed deceptively quiet. The previous confrontations had left ripples of unease in the air, but Sarah found herself feeling steadier than before. She moved through her cabin with a new sense of purpose, preparing breakfast for the boy and herself, her mind running through the events of the past week. Each encounter, each moment of fear and courage had shaped her. She no longer felt like a lone woman at the mercy of the world. She had allies, protectors, and a newfound strength within herself. A soft knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find the younger Apache brother standing there, holding a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "For you," he said simply, placing it in her hands, curious. Sarah unwrapped it to reveal a necklace of finely crafted beads, strung together in a pattern she did not recognize. The elder Apache had mentioned that such gifts were symbols of trust and honor. She looked up at him, her eyes wide. "It's beautiful, but you shouldn't have," she whispered. He shook his head. "It is not about giving or receiving. It is about respect. For your courage and for the protection you gave my brother. We honor that." Sarah's chest swelled with a mix of gratitude and humility. She had acted out of instinct, out of a desire to protect the boy. But this recognition, this acknowledgement from people she had only just begun to understand, moved her deeply. She realized that bravery, when guided by compassion, could resonate far beyond the moment of action. The boy bounded into the cabin, his laughter echoing off the wooden walls. "She saved me," he exclaimed proudly, holding her hand. Sarah knelt to meet his gaze, smiling warmly. "And you helped too?" "You were brave," she said softly, ruffling his hair. Outside, the elder Apache watched silently, his eyes sharp yet kind. He had remained a quiet presence during the domestic moment, allowing Sarah and the boy a space to connect while still offering the security of his watchful gaze. "Strength is not only in action," he said quietly, "but in understanding, in patience, in the care you show for others." Sarah nodded slowly. "I think I'm beginning to understand," she replied, her voice thoughtful. "It's more than just defending someone. It's about building trust, showing respect, and standing together even when it's hard." The elder Apache's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "Exactly. That is the foundation of honor. That is the bond that unites us." As the day wore on, Sarah spent time with the boy, teaching him simple chores and listening to his stories, while the Apache brothers prepared to leave temporarily, scouting the surrounding area to ensure no further threats approached. Yet even as they moved away, she felt their presence in the air, a quiet reassurance that she was not alone. She gazed out across the fields beyond her cabin, the morning light glinting off the trees. She realized that the past week had changed her, not just in how she faced danger, but in how she understood loyalty and trust. She had discovered courage within herself, yes, but she had also discovered the power of human connection, of standing together when the world seemed intent on tearing lives apart. That evening, as the sun set in shades of gold and crimson, Sarah carefully placed the beaded necklace around her neck. It was more than a token. It was a reminder of bravery, honor, and the bond she had forged with the boy and the Apache brothers. She had faced fear head-on, and though danger might still linger in the shadows, she knew now that she could confront it not alone, but alongside those who shared her courage and values. And somewhere in the distance, she sensed them watching. Guardians of a bond that had grown strong in just a few short days, silent witnesses to the courage of a woman who had refused to stand down, even when all odds were against her. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Sarah stood at the edge of her cabin, watching the horizon, the boy by her side. He held her hand tightly, his small fingers curling around hers as though seeking reassurance she already felt deep in her chest. Though the town had been quiet for days, a lingering unease pressed against the edges of her mind. She could not shake the feeling that danger, like a storm on the horizon, was approaching. Her intuition proved correct. By midday, word spread through the settlement that a group of men, angered by the previous confrontations, were gathering once more. This time, their intent was clear. They would not simply intimidate or threaten. They planned to take action. Sarah's pulse quickened, but she did not panic. She had learned in the past week that courage was more than reaction. It was preparation, awareness, and resolve. She turned to the boy, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "Stay close to me," she whispered. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Almost immediately, movement caught her eye. From the tree line emerged the elder Apache and the boy's brother, their presence silent but commanding. They flanked her as if born to guard, and Sarah felt an unexpected calm wash over her. The bond they shared had become something tangible, a shield of strength, trust, and loyalty. The mob arrived, louder and more menacing than before. Their horses stamped the dirt, their shouts carried hatred and impatience. At their forefront was the scarred man, his expression twisted with anger. "Thought we'd let this slide?" He barked. Think again. That boy belongs to us. Sarah stepped forward, holding her ground. No, she said firmly. He belongs to no one but his family, and I will not let you harm him. The Apache brothers exchanged a brief glance, a silent signal, before moving closer to her and the boy, creating an unbroken wall of protection. Their presence alone seemed to challenge the mob, who faltered slightly, uncertainty flickering across their faces. Step back, the elder Apache said, his voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. You threaten the innocent. That is not honor. That is fear. The scarred man's jaw tightened, his anger struggling against the tension in the air. One of his men sneered, but the words died on his lips as he realized the stoic resolve in the eyes of the three who stood before him. This was not intimidation, they were unwavering. Tension stretched like a taut rope, the wind carrying the unsaid threats and silent courage of both sides. Then Sarah felt the boy clutch her hand, small yet determined. She looked down at him, feeling his trust like a mantle across her shoulders. She straightened, meeting the mob's gaze with all the strength she could summon. If you come any closer, she said, her voice rising with conviction, you will face the consequences of your actions. We will not run. We will not hide. And we will not fail to protect what is right. A moment of silence followed, thick and suffocating. Then, slowly, one by one, the men began to retreat, muttering threats under their breath, but unwilling to confront the unyielding courage and unity of Sarah and the Apache brothers. When the dust settled, the boy's small hand tightened around Sarah's. She knelt to meet his eyes. It's okay, she said softly. They won't hurt you not while we're here. The Apache brothers exchanged a glance, nodding almost imperceptibly at each other. Then, to Sarah, the elder spoke, softer this time. Your courage has grown, as has your bond with those you protect. This is not the end. But together, we are stronger than fear. Sarah rose, a newfound sense of resolve settling into her bones. She understood now that courage was not simply facing danger, it was forging connections, standing with others, and honoring trust. She was no longer alone. The boy, the Apache brothers, and she were united by more than gratitude. They were bound by loyalty, respect, and the knowledge that together they could withstand whatever storms lay ahead as the sun began to sink, casting long shadows across the settlement. Sarah felt a quiet certainty. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side, unwavering, unafraid, and bound by a courage that no mob, no threat, could ever break. The morning after the confrontation was quieter than Sarah had expected. The town seemed to hold its breath, wary of the consequences of the previous day's events. Sarah walked outside, the boy clinging lightly to her hand. The weight of recent days pressed upon her, but instead of fear, a strange sense of calm had settled in. She no longer felt the trembling uncertainty of before. She had begun to understand what courage truly meant and how it could ripple outward, affecting those around her. The elder Apache approached quietly, moving with that same fluid grace that had both unnerved and comforted her. Behind him, the boy's brother followed, carrying a small bundle of supplies for their journey through the forest later in the day. Sarah noticed the careful, almost ceremonial way they moved, each gesture precise, deliberate, and full of respect. You have done well, the elder said, his voice low but warm. Your courage has become a shield, not just for the boy, but for yourself. Fear has no hold where trust and loyalty grow. Sarah looked at him, unsure whether to be embarrassed or proud. I only acted as I had to. I didn't think about courage. I couldn't leave him alone. That is why you are courageous, he replied, his eyes meeting hers. You act from your heart, not for recognition or reward. That is rare. The boy tugged at her hand, his bright eyes full of curiosity. "Will we go back to the forest today?" he asked. Sarah smiled, ruffling his hair. "Yes. We'll make sure you're safe and learn a few things about surviving out there, how to move quietly, where to find safe water, and how to read the land." The younger Apache brother knelt beside the boy, speaking in soft tones she didn't understand, yet the boy listened intently, nodding. Sarah watched them for a moment, marveling at the quiet authority and care in their interactions. These two warriors were fierce protectors, yet gentle teachers, balancing strength with patience, a lesson she herself was learning as the day progressed. Sarah walked alongside the brothers and the boy, learning about the forest, its paths, and its secrets. The elder Apache pointed out edible plants, safe trails, and signs of approaching weather. Sarah listened carefully, absorbing everything. With each instruction, she felt her confidence grow, not just in facing danger, but in understanding the world around her, the bond between humans and nature, and the responsibility that came with knowledge. By evening, they had set camp in a small clearing. The boy, tired but exhilarated, curled up near Sarah. She looked around at the brothers, who were now tending the fire with quiet efficiency. Their movements were precise and purposeful, and yet, when their eyes met hers, there was warmth and acknowledgement, a silent communication of trust and respect. Sarah sat by the fire, tracing the patterns in the earth with a stick, thinking of how much had changed in just a few days. She had come to the town as a stranger, cautious and unsure of her place. Now, she was part of something larger, a bond forged through courage, respect, and loyalty. She had begun to understand the depth of honor that guided the Apache, and in turn, she felt her own principles strengthening. The elder Apache finally spoke, his voice carrying softly over the crackle of the fire. "You have learned well, but courage is not enough. Wisdom and trust guide it. Protect the boy, protect yourself, and you will grow stronger together." Sarah nodded, the weight of his words settling in her heart. She realized that this journey was far from over, but the path ahead seemed clearer, brighter, and filled with the strength of connection she had never known before. As night fell, stars scattered across the sky, Sarah felt a quiet certainty. Whatever challenges awaited, she was no longer alone. Together with the boy and the Apache brothers, she would face them, fortified by trust, courage, and a bond that had grown stronger than fear itself. The morning air was crisp and quiet, but Sarah sensed a tension beneath the stillness. Something in the forest felt different, an unfamiliar scent, the faint snap of a branch too deliberate to be a passing deer. She knelt beside the boy, checking the small fire they had left smoldering overnight. "Stay close," she whispered, her voice steady though her heart thrummed with caution. The elder Apache rose silently, scanning the horizon with sharp, calculating eyes. "Trouble approaches," he said softly, almost to himself. The younger brother shifted beside him, muscles coiled, ready. Sarah could feel the unspoken communication between them, a bond honed by years of training and experience, and one she was beginning to understand. Before they could react further, the underbrush trembled violently. A group of men, armed and clearly emboldened, emerged, their faces twisted with anger and fearlessness. These were not the same hesitant townsfolk from previous encounters. They were determined, perhaps desperate, and far more dangerous. Sarah stood, positioning herself between the boy and the intruders. She felt the cool weight of the beaded necklace the younger Apache had given her, a reminder of trust, courage, and alliance. "Back," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension. "Do not come closer." The leader of the intruders sneered. "Thought you could hide in the woods? Think again. That boy is ours." His tone was harsh, meant to intimidate, but Sarah saw the flicker of hesitation in the eyes of the others. The Apache brothers moved in unison, one to her left, the other to her right, forming a protective barrier around the boy. Their presence was commanding, silent, and unyielding. "You threaten the innocent," the elder said, his voice low but carrying authority. "Leave now, or face the consequences." Sarah's heart pounded, but she held her ground. She had faced mobs before, yet this felt different. The danger was immediate, close, and lethal. She glanced at the boy, whose eyes were wide with fear but trusting. That trust strengthened her resolve. Without warning, the younger Apache brother stepped forward, drawing a line between Sarah and the intruders. He moved with a predator's precision, eyes locked on the approaching threat. Sarah's pulse quickened, not out of fear, but from the sheer intensity of the moment. She had never witnessed such controlled power before. The leader hesitated, sensing the danger he had underestimated. He glanced at his men, searching for support, but the silent authority radiating from the Apache brothers caused doubt to creep into his heart. A standoff ensued, tension thick in the air like storm clouds before a tempest. Sarah took a deep breath, steadying herself. "This ends now," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Leave, and you will not be harmed. But if you move closer, we will defend what is right." The intruders exchanged uncertain glances. The younger men shifted nervously, realizing they were outmatched not just by strength, but by the unwavering unity and courage of the three standing before them. Slowly, begrudgingly, they began to retreat, muttering under their breath but unwilling to risk confrontation. Once they had vanished into the forest, the boy exhaled, relief washing over him. Sarah knelt beside him, brushing dust from his clothing. "It's okay," she whispered. "They won't hurt you, not today." The Apache brothers exchanged a quiet glance, their eyes reflecting respect and pride toward Sarah. The elder spoke softly. "Your courage has grown stronger. Fear no longer controls you. Your actions are guided by honor, trust, and loyalty. Remember this. You are not alone." Sarah felt warmth rise in her chest, the bond between them stronger than ever. She realized that bravery was not just facing danger, it was forming connections, protecting those who could not protect themselves, and standing together even when the odds seemed impossible. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the forest in shades of gold and amber, Sarah looked at the boy and the Apache brothers. She understood something profound. Whatever threats came their way, they would face them together. And in that unity, in that shared courage, they had discovered a strength that no fear could ever break. The following morning broke with a heavy stillness, as though the forest itself held its breath. Sarah, the boy, and the Apache brothers moved cautiously through the trees, each step deliberate. Word had reached them that a larger group, angrier and more organized than ever, was searching for the boy. This was no ordinary threat, it was a test of courage, trust, and unity. Sarah's heart pounded, but she no longer felt fear in the same way. She felt focus, resolve, and an understanding of the bond she shared with the Apache brothers and the boy. They were no longer merely protectors, they were a team, united by shared courage and mutual respect. The first sign of the intruders came as a rustling behind the underbrush. The elder Apache motioned silently for Sarah and the boy to take cover behind a large oak. The younger brother moved to flank the approaching group, his presence a shadow of disciplined power. Sarah crouched low, her fingers gripping the boy's small hand, whispering, "Stay close. We're together in this." The mob emerged, armed and determined, but the confidence radiating from the three defenders caused hesitation. The scarred leader, now more desperate than angry, charged forward, thinking sheer numbers could intimidate them. But the elder Apache's sharp whistle cut through the air, precise and commanding. With swift coordination, the younger brother moved, intercepting the leader and forcing him to halt. Sarah stepped forward, holding her ground firmly. "This ends now," she declared, her voice carrying authority she had never known she possessed. "Leave the boy. Leave this place. You will not harm anyone while we are here." The tension was almost unbearable. Time seemed to stretch, every heartbeat loud in Sarah's ears. Then, as if the forest itself sided with her courage, the intruders faltered. The unity of the three defenders, the silent coordination, unwavering resolve, and the undeniable loyalty between them was stronger than fear, stronger than hatred. The boy peered from behind Sarah, his trust in her complete. That trust, combined with the formidable presence of the Apache brothers, formed an invisible shield, impenetrable and resolute. One by one, the mob began to retreat, their anger tempered by respect, or perhaps by the realization that they had no chance against those who moved as one. When the last figure disappeared into the trees, the forest fell silent again, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the soft exhalation of relief from Sarah and the boy. She knelt, gathering the boy into her arms. "It's over," she whispered, her voice trembling with exhaustion and triumph. "You're safe." The elder Apache approached, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "Your courage has been proven," he said quietly. "But more than that, your heart has shown the strength of loyalty and honor. That is what binds us all together. You are no longer alone. You never will be." Sarah looked at the two brothers, at the boy, and felt a warmth deep in her chest. She had come into this world uncertain, vulnerable, and cautious. Now she understood that courage, trust, and connection were forces far stronger than fear. She had protected the boy, yes, but in the process, she had found a bond that could withstand any threat. The younger Apache knelt beside her, a gesture of respect and gratitude. The elder placed a hand lightly on the boy's shoulder, reinforcing the sense of family and protection that now surrounded them. Sarah realized with a mixture of relief and awe that they were more than allies, they were chosen family, bound by loyalty, courage, and shared trials. As the sun set, casting golden light across the forest, Sarah felt a profound sense of peace. Danger could return, storms could come, but the bond forged in courage and honor would remain unbroken. Together they had faced fear, protected the innocent, and emerged stronger. Their trust and respect for one another deepened forever. In that moment, Sarah knew something undeniable. Bravery was not just an act, but a living bond, a connection that united hearts and souls, turning strangers into protectors and protectors into family. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly, unshakably safe.